Hi everyone, today we're going to learn how to divide complex numbers. The rule for this is you're not allowed to have any i's in the denominator, just like you couldn't have radicals in the denominator. So we're actually going to multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the denominator using I part. Again, we can use I part here as long as there aren't any radicals present. And then it says to express all repeating decimals and or non-terminating decimals as fractions. If you use I parts, you won't end up with any decimals. You'll end up with fractions. All answers must be in A plus BI form. Okay, let's take a look at number 1. You might want to pause the video now, copy those directions down and number 1, and then come back so we can continue on. All right, now that you have everything copied, they want you to tell them what the conjugate is of the following. Well, the conjugate of negative 2 plus 3i will be negative 2 minus 3i. And the conjugate of 1/2 plus 3/2 I will be 1/2 minus 3/2 I. And if you notice, and I'm going to make that a little bit nicer. So again, it's 1/2 minus 3/2 I. If you notice, I placed the I next to the fraction. It's like a variable, but in this case, it's an I, which stands for an imaginary number. Okay, with that being said, let's kind of write our steps down for using I part. If we want to use I part, so if you want to use I part, this is what you're going to have to do. Step 1, you're going to have to use I part to multiply the numerators. Step 2, you're going to use I part again to multiply the denominators. Let's make that a better word too. Getting a little sloppy here today. And then the last step is you're going to simplify if you possibly can. All right, with that being said, let's go on. Taking a look at number 2. With number 2, I have an I in the denominator. I'm not allowed to have it. It's a binomial, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. The conjugate of 2 minus I is going to be 2 plus I. All right, I'm going to take my calculator out, and I'm going to multiply the numerators together using I part. So you're going to go to Math, scroll over to numeration, number 3 for I part, plug in 8 plus I, close parentheses, open up a set of parentheses again, 2 plus I, close the parentheses, and hit enter. And you end up with, you're right, 15 plus 10i. We're going to do the same thing to the denominators. We're going to go to Math, scroll over to Num, down to number 3 for I part. You're going to plug in 2 minus I, close parentheses, parentheses 2 plus I, close parentheses, enter. And hopefully you ended up with 5. Now you're going to take a look at all your leading coefficients. They all can be reduced by 5. 5 goes into 5 once, into 15 3 times, into 10 twice. And you'll end up with a final answer of 3 plus 2i. That's pretty easy if you get to use I part. Well, what happens if you don't have I part? Well, let's see what happens if you don't have I part. If you had 8 plus I over 2 minus I, and you had to multiply top and bottom by 2 plus I, you actually would have to do all of FOIL to the top, and you would end up with first 16 outer plus 8i, inner plus 2i, last plus I squared. On the bottom, it's also FOIL, but in this case it's dots, so I only have to do first and last. First, 2 times 2 is 4. A negative I times a positive I is a negative I squared. If I neaten this up, I get 16 plus 10i plus I squared is a negative 1 over 4 minus I squared is a negative 1. Let's neaten this up more. 16 plus a negative 1 is 15 plus 10i over 4 minus a negative 1 is 5. If I reduce everybody by 5, I get 1 here. 5 goes into 15 3 times 2. I end up with the exact same answer of 3 plus 2i. So you can do it without the calculator, just the calculator is a lot easier. All right, with that being said, let's go on to number 3. With number 3, it's not a binomial in the denominator, but it is an I, so we're going to multiply top and bottom by 5i. We're going to pull out our calculator, and we're going to do I part to the numerator. Hopefully you ended up with 30 plus 20i. And then you're going to pull out the calculator again and do I part to the denominators. Math, scroll over to numeration. Number 3 for I part, 5i, close parentheses, open up a parentheses, 5i, close parentheses, enter. And hopefully you ended up with negative 25. So now we have to look and see if we can simplify. Yes, 5 can go into all of them, but take a look at your denominator. It's a negative. So you're going to want to divide everybody by a negative 5 to change your denominator to a positive. So negative 5 goes into a negative 25 5 times. Negative 5 goes into 30 negative 6 times. And a negative 5 goes into 20 negative 4 times. So my final answer is going to be negative 6 minus 4i over a positive 5. Now, when your answer is still a fraction, you may sometimes see it on multiple choice written this way. Negative 6/5 minus 4/5 I. So it just shows that the 5 goes with the negative 6 and the negative 4. And remember, the I always is on the side of a fraction. So either one can be written as the correct answer. All right, with that being said, let's move on to another example. Example number 4. Okay, we can't use I part in this case because we have radicals. Well, let's see if we can simplify those radicals. So we have 5 plus, the square root of negative 1 is I. We don't have a radical anymore. 3 minus, the square root of negative 6 is 4i. So we don't have a radical anymore. Because remember, negative 16 really is 16 times a negative 1, which is 4i. All right, so we have no more radicals, but we still have an I in the denominator, so we're going to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. 3 plus 4i and 3 plus 4i. The top, we're going to put in the calculator and get an answer. So why don't you pause the video, put that in the calculator, and come back. Hopefully you achieved 11 plus 23i. Whoops, I forgot my 3, 23i. And on the bottom, you're going to put that into I part also. Pause the video and come back. All right, hopefully you ended up with 25. Take a look at all the leading coefficients. You have 11, and I'm going to make this guy a nicer 23. You have 23 and you have 25. You can't reduce any of them by the same number, so there's my answer. Or your answer can also be written as 11 25ths plus 23 25ths I. Okay, let's take a look now at number 5. What is the multiplicative inverse of 2 plus I? Well, the multiplicative inverse of 2 plus I is 1 over 2 plus I. Oh, that gives me an I in the denominator, which I can't have. So I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate because it's a binomial. So to multiply top and bottom by 2 minus I. Well, this one I'm not going to use a calculator because it looks very, very easy. On the top, 1 times 2 minus I is 2 minus I. On the bottom, it's dots. So when it's dots, I only have to do first and last in FOIL because outer and inner are going to cancel out. So I'm going to get 4 plus, whoops, not plus, 4 what? You're right, 4 minus I squared. All right, let's neaten that up. 2 minus I over 4 minus a negative 1. So I have 2 minus I over 5. Look at all the leading coefficients. 2, 1, and 5. Can it be reduced? No. Another way this could be written, or 2/5 minus 1/5 I. See the 1? Because the 1 really is in front of the I. And so we're done with that one. And let's move on to our last problem of the day. What is the reciprocal of 7 minus 4i? Well, the reciprocal of 7 minus 4i is 1 over 7 minus 4i. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of 7 plus I. I'm sorry, 7 plus 4i. I'm going to stop there. I want you to finish number 6 tonight for homework and bring it in tomorrow and we'll go over it. Please remember you can use I part because there are no radicals present. Have a good evening.